Hello, fellow referees. I'm Mike Register of the Golden Isle Soccer Officials Association, and for today's session, I'm going to be covering procedures for suspended, postponed, and terminated matches. Primarily, we're going to talk about matches that are postponed for weather considerations. The GSOA requires the host school to provide lightning detectors at all outdoor athletic activities, including soccer. And while these can be a formal lightning detection system, most schools typically use a smartphone with an app that detects lightning, and that's fine. When a lightning detector indicates a dangerous situation, the game administrator will notify the head official. At that point, the official will suspend play, and all participants and fans will go to a place of safety. Officials will also go to a place of safety. The place of safety is typically inside the school. There are a small number of schools that play games at fields that are not attached to the school, in which case the coaches will get their teams to a safe place, and the officials should do likewise. It's worth noting that if any member of the officiating crew spots lightning or dangerous weather without being notified by the game administrator, the crew still has the authority to suspend play. When thunder is heard or lightning is seen, that means the leading edge of the thunderstorm is close enough to strike your location with lightning. So we need to take these situations seriously. You'll need to suspend play immediately and get the officials to a safe location. Coaches will take responsibility for their teams. We will need to observe the 30-minute rule. Once play has been suspended, we have to have 30 minutes without thunder or lightning before we can restart play. If you see thunder or lightning while you are waiting the 30 minutes, then you have to start the clock over again and wait another 30 minutes until everything is clear. While coaches and game administrators will typically track the 30-minute timer, the referee crew should be responsible for that. When determining how long to wait before a suspended match becomes a postponed or terminated match, there are two scenarios to consider. The first is when the teams are from different classifications. For example, one team is from 7A and the other team is from 5A. The other scenario is when the teams are from the same classification. So why is there a difference? GSOA rules require that games between schools of the same classification be completed at some point, either on the night of the game or at some future point, whereas games between teams of different classifications do not have to be played into completion. We should note that junior varsity matches do not have to be completed, although 30-minute rule applies to delays. So first, let's cover the procedures for suspending varsity matches between schools of different classifications. Matches that are suspended are subject to a cumulative 2-hour delay, at which point the contest shall be terminated. And what this means is if you have a lightning delay of, say, an hour, and then it's safe to restart play, so you start, only to have the storm come back, and you have another delay that will be at least 1 hour, then the match will be terminated. Also, any delay cannot extend the game beyond an 11:30 p.m. playing time, which is the GSOA curfew. If there's a local curfew that would require the match to stop playing earlier, it would take priority over the GSOA curfew. It is not the responsibility of referees to understand all of the local municipal ordinances regarding curfews for minors. The coaches and/or game administrators are responsible for knowing this information. We should also note that coaches and administrators may also decide to postpone the match prior to reaching a 2-hour delay. Where this happens most commonly is when there's been a delay for 30 minutes and they look at their smartphones and they see that there's going to be no break in the storm and they decide to call it. That is perfectly acceptable. The second procedure involves suspended matches between schools of the same classification. In this case, there is no cumulative 2-hour delay limit, and there is no GSOA curfew. So, theoretically, the game can continue to be delayed until it completes, whether that be at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, that's in theory. That doesn't actually happen often, if ever, in practice. It's important to note that any local curfew would still remain in effect, and that the coaches and/or administrator may decide to postpone the match. Let's go over what your responsibilities are in handling a postponed or terminated match. The first thing you should be aware of is that a match that's been postponed or terminated may be resumed at a later date, and that GHSA policy dictates how that is handled. It's not your responsibility to know that part of the GHSA policy. What is your responsibility is that if you postpone or terminate a match, you have to submit a report that includes the following details: the reason for the postponement or termination. For example, if it was delayed because of lightning, it's simple enough to say that there were thunderstorms in the area with lightning. Your report should also include the half number and the amount of time remaining in the half. So, for example, it was the first half and there were 10 minutes remaining. The score at the time the match was postponed or terminated. On which side of the field the teams were playing. For example, Jones County High School was attacking the scoreboard end of the field. You should also include how to restart the match based on how play was stopped. So if play was naturally stopped when you suspended play, for example, the ball was out for a throw-in, you would simply indicate play will be restarted with a throw-in for Jones County High, and you would describe roughly on the field where that would take place. If you halted play while the ball was still in play, then the restart is going to be a drop ball, and you'd need to describe where on the field the ball was when play was stopped and who had possession. Your report should also include a list of any cards issued for misconduct, including the name of the team, the name of the player, the uniform number of the player, and the reason for the misconduct. So, for example, you would include on your report a list of misconducts issued for Jones County High School. Player Steve Smith, uniform number 10, was issued a yellow card for dissent. If the match was postponed or terminated in the first half, the report should indicate which team kicked off to start the match. And you should also note that if you issued any red cards during the match, those still require a separate report of their own, just like any other red card. There are a number of GHSA rules for how postponed or terminated matches are handled. In other words, whether they're scheduled to be finished at a later date. It is the responsibility of the coaches to understand these. It is not the responsibility of officials. Coaches will ask you, and players sometimes will ask you questions about that. You can simply refer players to their coaches, or refer coaches to the White Book or to GHSA for questions on that. Your responsibility is to ensure proper administration of a postponed or terminated match. That means that you have suspended the match appropriately, that you followed the rules and the 30-minute rule about trying to restart a match, and that you have submitted a properly documented report that tells any future referee crew how to restart the match if that's the decision of the GHSA. Ultimately, the decision about what happens next rests with the GHSA. That's it. Good luck this season.